Today on MH News VLAMP, we're showing you how we shoot, edit, and publish over 25 videos in less than 24 hours. Welcome back everyone to MH News VLAMP, video, lighting, audio, music, and photography. I am of course your host, Matt Haslam, and first off, it is so good to be back. Secondly, I hope you noticed our brand new, more permanent set to MH News VLAMP and a couple other videos that we're going to be doing in the future here. But third, I've been getting a lot of questions recently on how exactly we shoot, edit, and publish so many videos so rapidly, and I kind of want to go through how exactly we do that step by step, as well as some of the equipment we use to do that. I will warn you though, it does take some extra equipment and it does take some experience doing that before you can do what we call 24-hour edits, but once you get going it does get a lot easier. Now, before we go into how exactly we do that, I want to kind of explain maybe why you would need to do this one day, because you might be saying to yourself, Matt, you don't need to publish these videos so rapidly, and the truth is there are some reasons and situations where you definitely do have to do that kind of thing. Now, if you're in the wedding videography industry, you might be familiar with a thing called the same day edit, and that's not to be confused with the 24-hour edit like we're talking about here today. The same day edit is when you go out and film a wedding ceremony, and on your way to the reception, you're editing that down to the most important moments, such as the first kiss, walking down the aisle, that sort of thing. And on the way to the reception, you're editing it all together to make a more choppy and less perfect edit of that ceremony itself. That way you can broadcast it on a projection screen or maybe a television screen at the reception hall itself. Now, what's important to note about that is that the family and friends at the wedding reception aren't really sitting there critiquing your work, so it can be less perfect than what's probably desired. For instance, they might be concentrated on the first dance, eating, drinking, and mingling with their friends instead of sitting there watching your video and saying, well, that was a cut instead of a fade. So in some ways, it can be less perfect than what's probably desired. When it comes to a 24-hour edit, you have some more time to edit that video, but it's a lot more perfected and refined of an edit than a same day edit. Now, one of the reasons why you might need to do this one day is if your customer specifically asks for this to be done. For instance, the first time I ever did a 24-hour edit, it was actually for a political rally that was happening within 5 days of the election here in the United States. So they wanted this video out quite rapidly. Now, they actually asked if we can go live with this broadcast, but I told them we don't have the capability yet to do that back in those days. So what I could do for them is I could have done a 24-hour edit, and they accepted that offer. But I think it's important to be very honest with them and say to them that this is my first time doing this, if it's in fact your first time. I don't think it's fair to just tell them, yeah, I've done this hundreds of times before if you've never done it. I think that's important to clarify with your customers. But in that situation, we went with a 24-hour edit and only 2 cameras running 720p, which, granted, we did have full HD capabilities back in those days, but our computer couldn't edit full HD files that rapidly yet. We could edit them, but it took about a week and a half to do compared to a 24-hour edit timeline that we had. So we actually went with 720p, and it went out just fine. But it was difficult. We didn't have any graphics ready yet. We didn't have anything at all before the actual event happened. So we were kind of unprepared for it. Now, the other reason why you might need to do this one day is if, let's say, you need to do it, but you don't necessarily have a customer asking for this. You just want the most amount of eyes on your project as possible. So, for instance here, we recently covered an event called Skoogle's Got Talent Competition, and the way this event ran was every single Tuesday there was a different contest, a different round of the contest for contestants to compete in. But we wanted these videos out as soon as possible because if we waited our normal 1 or 2 weeks to edit these videos, well, suddenly no one's going to want to watch them because that contestant has been eliminated from the contest, or the contest is over entirely. So we wanted everyone possible to look at these videos. We wanted to be the company that provided these videos within 24 hours of showtime. That way, it allowed these contestants to share these videos on social media and get thousands of hits on them, which meant thousands of eyes looking at our projects and hopefully buying DVDs. Now, how exactly do we shoot, edit, and publish so many videos so rapidly, especially for events that were coming out with over 25 videos in less than 24 hours? The truth is, it's really quite simple once you get going. To help us out in this, we're going to come up with an example event, and hopefully that'll help us explain this as we go through. So let's say there's an event coming up this Saturday at 7 p.m. that we're going to film, edit, and publish within 24 hours of showtime. Well, we're actually going to start on that event at 7 p.m. the previous day, on Friday. We're going to come up with all the graphics we can possibly need for that event, and basically template the whole thing out. So we're going to come up with the intro sequence, we're going to come up with a template for the end credits for that event, and we're going to come up with a template for the lower thirds we're going to need to introduce different people that come on stage. We're going to come up with all the different graphics we can possibly need for that event. That way everything is ready to go. Now, in years past, we didn't come up with any graphics beforehand, and we had to actually come up with all these graphics after the event was filmed, and we're trying to really rush to get this thing done. And it was just a nightmare to try to come up with graphics that fast. So how this works is we actually go into Adobe Illustrator CC and come up with all of our titles, all of our graphic templates, and all that kind of stuff. Bring them into Adobe Premiere Pro and add all the video files we need, make all the animations we can possibly need, and we come up with different templates. That way, we have an intro sequence, we have a template for the end credits, and we have a template for the lower thirds, and anything else we can possibly need for that event. Now, as an example of this, we came up with this lower third right here for our Halloween parades this past year, but you may not want a little pumpkin in the corner for other types of events. So we come up with specific graphics for each and every event that we do. For instance, for a political rally, we might have an American flag in the corner, that sort of thing. It becomes a little bit of a nightmare coming up with these different graphics for different events, but once you go through about a year of doing these, then you'll have different templates ready to go. And I do highly suggest saving all of these templates. That way you can use them for future events in future years. Now, after all the graphics are ready to go, we'll actually get all of our equipment ready for the next day and get everything packed up and ready to go. Then the day of the event, we'll go out and we'll set up all of our gear and multiple cameras. And it's important to note that we have at least 2 cameras on any event that we're doing. Not just 24-hour edits, but any event we're doing. Any production, we have more than 1 camera on. Because what if the files on that camera don't save correctly and we can't get them? So I highly suggest having more than 1 camera on every production you do, but especially on these 24-hour edit videos. Now, why this is important is because you want to make sure you capture everything from not only multiple angles, but you want to make sure you capture everything without missing anything. What if a file gets corrupted? What are you going to do about that video footage? You suddenly don't have video footage for at least 12 minutes of that video. Well, you're just going to have a black screen for that 24-hour edit, aren't you? Well, that's why we have multiple cameras. That's why we have 10 cameras on some events that we're doing, to make sure that we capture every single moment. Now, what I want to say on this is it's a whole lot easier to edit in multicam than 1 camera, because with 1 camera you just have to cut to the next shot, whereas with multiple cameras you can actually edit in Premiere Pro in multicam sequence, which means basically you can edit this thing as if it's a live production. Once everything is filmed and the entire event is over, we take all of the SD cards out of our cameras and audio recorders and save them onto an external hard drive that's with us on every single location in our DIT station. Now, why we do this is because we don't want anything to be lost. we want to make sure that we have all the different video files, all the audio files that we can possibly have, and that way we have at least 2 copies before we start driving back to the office here. Once we're back in the office here, we copy that master project file over to our main RAID system here at the office. That way we have at least 3 copies of that entire project. Now, once everything is copied to that RAID system, we start importing all of the footage from all of our cameras and all of our audio recorders into a program called Red Giant Pluralize. Now, what this program does is it goes through all of your video files and all of your audio files, and it syncs everything up perfectly. And I cannot recommend this program enough. It's only $180 when it's on sale and only $200 when it's not on sale. It's very, very much worth the cost to have it. Now, basically what that means is we can start importing the footage and hit automatic sync, and we can actually go for dinner while that is running. And it takes about 20 minutes from the time you start importing footage to the time it's all synced up and your timeline is ready to import into Premiere Pro. So it does take about 20 minutes to do that, but it's a whole lot less time investment than sitting there and having to actually go through the waveforms yourself. And it's a whole lot more accurate. So basically, this program is running, and in the meantime, we actually go for dinner, because by this point we've already been working for about 8 to 10 hours filming the event, and we're quite tired. So we actually go for something to eat really quick, come back, and everything's perfectly in sync. We import that timeline into Premiere Pro and edit everything in multicam. Well, you might be asking yourself, why exactly do we edit in multicam instead of a regular sequence? And that's because it's a whole lot easier to do this. Now, let's just make this very clear. When you're editing a live broadcast, what they're doing is they're choosing different camera angles. So they're saying, ready camera 1, 1's in, ready camera 5, 5's in, and they're editing this thing live for a live broadcast. Well, that's essentially the thing you're doing in Premiere Pro, only for recorded production. You're choosing your camera angles as the production goes along, so you can edit in real time. Now, there's really no way to edit faster than real time, so I don't suggest trying to do that, because you want to see this thing exactly how it's going to come out. Basically, what we're trying to do here is edit all of your video in real time. That way you can choose all of your different camera angles and when exactly you're switching from one camera to the other. You're choosing all that kind of stuff in real time, and you're acting as a director then. Then you're going through all of your audio and mixing it in Adobe Audition in real time with a live fader system in that program. That way you can edit your audio in real time and sort of act like an audio director at that moment. Basically, how live productions work is they have a team of people in a big truck. And what you're doing here is you're going through each of those positions one at a time to make sure they're done correctly, because you don't have a team of 5 to 10 people to do that job. So you want to do each of those jobs individually in real time, even though it does take double or triple as long. Once all of your audio is edited, you bring that audio back into Adobe Premiere Pro, and then you start on all of your graphics. And all of your graphics are fairly easy because you know what is coming next. By this point, you already have all the templates ready, so you just drag and drop those templates in, add your text to that template, and then finally watch your entire event back one more time before you hit publish. So how exactly do we do more than 20-some videos in less than 24 hours? I've only really explained how to do one video in 24 hours. Well, the truth is, once we're done editing that 1 or 2 hour long project file, we hit Q, and that takes that project over to Adobe Media Encoder and starts encoding that video, the really long, full version of that video. And while that's all going on, we're back in Adobe Premiere, and we're cutting that video apart. So let's say we're doing a talent contest like School's Got Talent. We are actually cutting each individual act from that program out and bringing it into its own timeline. Then once it's in its own timeline, we add different graphics to it to make sure it's all programmed correctly, and we're queuing that video, and that way, basically from a 2 hour long event, we're getting lots of individual clips from different songs during that program, and we're getting the full version of the entire program as it happened. So we can publish all of those videos within 24 hours. And it's important to have programs like Adobe Media Encoder. That way you can let one program run and still work on different edits while that's going on. And by the time that main full version video is completed and all encoded and ready to upload to YouTube, all of the other videos are now queued below that. That way you can just encode all of them in a sequence. So I hope this video has helped you create your own 24-hour edits in the future. And if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, or any tips on how to do this any more efficiently, please leave a comment in the comment section below, and I thank you very much for those. Thank you very much for joining us here today, and see us next time here on MH News VLAMP. Bye for now.